When you move, heaven salutes. When you speak, even warriors listen. These words describe the rare power of divine authority, the kind that flows not from position or rank, but from purpose. Chosen one, you've been walking with a quiet force that the world can't quite understand. There's something about you, an unshakable calm, a steady confidence that shifts the atmosphere the moment you enter a room. People sense it before you even speak. It's not arrogance, it's spiritual gravity. Your energy demands respect because it's aligned with something higher. Psychologists call this presence, a trait of individuals whose inner conviction radiates outward. Spiritually, it's what Scripture describes as the mark of divine favor, when heaven's light within you starts to shine so brightly that even darkness pays attention. Throughout history, those chosen by divine purpose often carried this same unseen weight. Moses didn't need a crown to part the sea. His authority came from obedience to a greater command. David wasn't respected because of his armor, but because of his anointing. The world calls it charisma, but in truth, it's the resonance of purpose, that rare alignment between your spirit and your calling. It's why you intimidate those who operate only by human systems. They measure strength by titles, wealth, or appearance, but you move by unseen instruction. Your life doesn't follow their protocol, and that confuses them. The military elite, the powerful, even the intellectuals, they sense something illegal about your rise because your source isn't from their hierarchy. You're powered by divine intelligence, a higher frequency that makes you unpredictable in a world addicted to control. The story of the rejected soldier mirrors the destiny of many chosen ones. He was dismissed not because he lacked ability, but because his method didn't fit the manual. Years later, he became the one writing the manual. That's the story of divine inversion, when heaven flips the order of things to reveal that authority doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears humility, and when that kind of authority speaks, even warriors pause to listen. Scientifically, confidence and calm dominance release subtle physiological cues that command respect. Lowered tone, slower speech, and steady gaze. Spiritually, those same cues are reflections of inner peace, proof that your soul has found its command center in God. So when you walk into a room and people adjust themselves without knowing why, understand this: heaven already saluted you before they did. You carry divine clearance. The systems that once rejected you are now learning from your design. This isn't arrogance, it's ascension. The warrior within you has awakened, and the world is beginning to recognize that your strength isn't rebellion, it's revelation. Point 1, you're operating on a higher frequency. Chosen one, you're not better than others. You're just attuned differently. You move through life like a radio tuned to a higher frequency while the rest of the world buzzes with static. You sense what's unseen, hear what's unsaid, and act from a calm that confuses both enemies and admirers. When chaos erupts, most people are swept away by emotion, fear, anger, or panic. But you pause. You don't react, you respond. You take a spiritual breath, tune into that divine signal, and let intuition, God's whisper, direct your next move. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. In psychological terms, this is known as metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. But spiritually, it's something deeper, discernment. You don't just see the surface of a situation, you read the energy behind it. While others focus on what's happening, you sense why it's happening. This is what makes you powerful and misunderstood at the same time. People expect you to move like everyone else, to react fast, to fight back, to prove yourself. But your silence throws them off. You know that stillness isn't weakness, it's strategy. You don't need to fight every battle because you've learned that some wars are already won in the spirit before they even start in the flesh. That's why the elites, the structured systems, and even those obsessed with control can't figure you out. They operate on hierarchy, protocol, and manipulation. But your blueprint doesn't come from human ranks. It comes from divine command. Your intuition doesn't report to authority. It reports to God. When they expect submission to their rules, you answer only to truth. When they demand loyalty to their systems, you follow divine timing. You are not rebellious. You're simply aligned with a higher intelligence. You can't be bribed, coerced, or flattered into compliance because you already know who gives you your marching orders. Think of it this way. Soldiers in an army take orders from a general, but prophets, visionaries, and chosen ones take orders from spirit. You move when you're told to move and stay still, when divine wisdom says, wait. Even neuroscience confirms that people who practice deep mindfulness and spiritual awareness activate parts of the brain associated with clarity, decision-making, and intuition, the prefrontal cortex. Your calm under pressure isn't just spiritual, it's neurological evidence of mastery. You've trained your mind and spirit to stay connected when others disconnect. When those around you crumble under fear, you don't see obstacles. You see divine strategy unfolding. Where others see setbacks, you recognize setups for revelation. Your alignment allows you to stand firm, even when logic says you should break. That's why you seem unpredictable to the worldly and unstoppable to the faithful. They don't understand how you keep rising, how you remain composed when life throws storms your way. But you do, because your roots go deep. And let's be honest, this confuses people who live by control. Institutions, social systems, and even powerful individuals are built to influence the masses through fear. Yet fear doesn't move you anymore. You've outgrown that vibration. You've learned that obedience to God's voice outweighs obedience to man's expectations. It's not defiance, it's divine discipline. So when they label you different, too quiet, or too independent, smile. They're not wrong, you are different. You're operating from a frequency beyond ego, beyond fear, and beyond the illusion of control. You're not trying to be better, you're trying to be true. You've realized that being chosen means being called to a higher standard, not to dominate, but to discern, not to rule others, but to serve truth. And that's why, no matter how many systems try to box you in, you remain free. Because the chosen ones don't answer to the world, they answer to the one who created it. Point 2, your calmness is your weapon. You ever noticed how your peace makes people nervous? That quiet, steady energy you carry, it unsettles them. It's not arrogance, not coldness, not indifference. It's something sacred. Because when a chosen one learns to master their peace, they no longer operate on the same frequency as the world. Chaos feeds on reaction, and you give it none. You've learned that not every battle requires your sword, and not every insult deserves your attention. While they yell, you breathe. While they plot, you pray. While they chase validation, you guard your vibration. You don't move from emotion, you move from revelation. And that, chosen one, is power. You see, emotional mastery isn't just a self-help buzzword. It's a spiritual weapon. When you regulate your inner world, you're not just being calm, you're aligning with divine intelligence. Science even backs this up. Studies show that staying calm under pressure helps the brain's prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thinking, stay active, while emotional reactivity shuts it down. In spiritual terms, it means that while others let their emotions lead them into traps, you remain guided by insight and intuition. That's why your silence speaks volumes. It's not passive, it's prophetic. People who live in constant noise don't understand that kind of peace. They mistake your calm for weakness and your patience for naivety. But what they're really sensing is their own spiritual dissonance. Your peace acts like a mirror. It reflects their chaos back at them. That's why your energy feels like a threat to anyone who hasn't done the inner work. You expose the instability they try so hard to hide. Even Scripture reminds us, be still and know that I am God. That stillness isn't laziness, it's awareness. It's knowing that divine timing never needs defending. When you walk into a room, the energy shifts, the air feels different, conversations quiet down, and eyes follow you, not because of ego, but because your frequency commands attention. You carry spiritual gravity. Darkness recognizes that glow because it cannot manipulate it. Your calm presence disrupts demonic energy. That's why enemies whisper, it's unnatural. No, it's divine discipline. You've learned to let God handle what your words cannot. You've realized that the loudest revenge is peace. That's not philosophy, that's spiritual warfare. And it's funny, isn't it, how when you stop reacting, the world panics. Narcissists lose control because they feed on your emotional supply. Gossips get frustrated because their rumors die when you refuse to water them with a response. The spiritually immature mistake your stillness for ignorance, not realizing that you already saw through their intentions long ago. But instead of exposing them, you prayed for them. That's the difference between those ruled by ego and those guided by purpose. Chosen one, understand this. Maintaining peace in a chaotic world is not easy. It's training. It's fasting from emotional impulses. It's choosing not to clap back when your flesh wants to. It's learning to hear lies about you and still bless those speaking them. That's divine restraint. And it terrifies the enemy because he cannot tempt someone who's already surrendered control to God. So when people call you too calm, smile. When they say you act like nothing bothers you, thank them. They're unknowingly confirming your growth because true warriors don't always roar. Sometimes they meditate, pray, and stay silent while heaven rearranges everything. Your peace is your passport to higher realms, your protection against emotional ambush, and your confirmation that you're operating from divine awareness. Stay still, stay wise, and keep that peace guarded like a sacred jewel. Because the moment you learned that silence can be louder than any argument, that's when your power became untouchable. Point 3. You expose false authority. You don't have to call out lies. Your presence does it for you. There's a sacred authority that surrounds a chosen one, a quiet radiance that exposes falsehoods without a single word spoken. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. When your spirit vibrates with truth, everything that's built on deception begins to tremble. Think of it like light entering a dark room. The darkness doesn't argue, it doesn't resist, it simply disappears. That's what happens when you walk into a space. Pretenders feel an invisible discomfort, not because you said or did anything, but because your energy's too honest for their illusions to survive. Lies are fragile things. They need constant maintenance, repetition, manipulation, and validation to stay alive. But truth sustains itself. It doesn't need a crowd or approval. It just is. Psychologically, Humans can sense authenticity even before words are exchanged. Research in behavioral science shows that our subconscious reads micro-expressions, tone shifts, and energy fields faster than our conscious mind can process them. That's why people often say, I don't know why, but something about that person feels different. That something is resonance, the frequency of truth. And chosen ones operate on that wavelength naturally. This is also why manipulation and deceit crumble around you. Those who thrive on lies subconsciously avoid people like you, because your vibration exposes the cracks in their mask. When you enter a room, their confidence falters. Their rehearsed stories don't sound as convincing anymore. Their fake smiles twitch, their eyes dart away, and suddenly the illusion they've spent years crafting feels heavy, even to them. They feel seen, not by your eyes, but by your energy. You don't confront, you reveal. Even the so-called spiritual elite can sense it. Those who wear spirituality like a costume, speaking about light, energy, and awakening, yet living with ego and control, feel an unspoken tension around you. You carry the real essence they mimic. Your connection to the divine is not a performance, it's a lived truth. That's why they keep tabs on you. They study you, they mimic your words, and they try to understand how you carry such authority without titles, stages, or recognition. But they don't realize that your power wasn't built by followers or platforms. It was stamped by heaven long before the world noticed you. There's a sacred signature that rests on a chosen one's spirit, an invisible seal of authenticity. It's the same reason why prophets, visionaries, and truth-tellers throughout history faced resistance. Their mere presence disturbed systems built on deceit. Think of Moses walking into Pharaoh's palace, or Jesus walking among hypocrites who claimed holiness. They didn't have to shout. Their existence alone was confrontation enough. When truth walks in, deception feels naked. And that's exactly what you carry. You don't chase validation because you know the source that sent you. You don't argue with the fake because you understand the power of silence. You are not here to prove yourself, you're here to be yourself. And that being is powerful enough to shake rooms, shift atmospheres, and awaken sleeping souls. So don't shrink when others feel uneasy around you. Don't dim your light to make deceivers comfortable. Remember, your energy exposes what's hidden, not to shame others, but to awaken them. You were never sent to blend in, you were sent to illuminate. When heaven stamped your authority, it wasn't asking permission from man, it was declaring your purpose. And every time you walk in truth, that divine signature speaks louder than any lie ever could. Point 4, you've mastered silent strategy. Chosen one, let's be honest, when you left certain people, situations, or environments, it wasn't an impulsive move. It was precision. It was strategy. You didn't storm out. You slipped out, quietly, gracefully, without warning. And that's what made it powerful. You see, people often expect drama when someone leaves their life. They expect a loud goodbye, a slammed door, or at least a social media hint. But you gave them none of that. You simply vanished because your exits were not born of ego or emotion. They were orchestrated by spirit. Every step back you took was a divinely calculated move toward peace. This is what separates a chosen one from everyone else, awareness. You learned that not every battle deserves your sword. Sometimes the real power lies in not fighting at all. You began to see that silence can be a form of warfare, a divine tactic. The Bible says in Exodus 14:14, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Stillness isn't weakness. It's a coded message to the spiritual realm that says, I trust divine timing more than I trust human chaos. When you disappeared, you weren't running away. You were aligning yourself. You were choosing purpose over pettiness. Now the enemy, whether it's people who wronged you, systems that underestimated you, or energies that sought to drain you, doesn't know what to do with your silence. They expected you to crumble, to react, to come back begging for closure. But instead you became an enigma, and that's what terrifies them. Psychologically speaking, humans crave predictability. When someone acts outside that pattern, when you move with calm, with control, with spiritual poise, it unsettles them. Your peace becomes their confusion. Your silence echoes louder than any argument ever could. Think of it like chess. Every move you make now is intentional. You no longer play checkers with people who can't see beyond the next move. You're playing spiritual chess. You learned to withdraw from the board entirely when you realized some players weren't interested in winning. They were just there to waste time. That's why your departure was so unnerving. You didn't just leave the game, you changed the entire playing field. And here's where it gets deep. In psychology, there's a concept known as tactical withdrawal. It's a military-inspired term meaning to step back strategically, not out of defeat, but to gain higher ground. That's exactly what you did. You didn't ghost people, you repositioned yourself. You moved from environments that drained your energy to spaces that nourished your soul. Every boundary you set, every connection you released, every moment you chose silence over reaction, it was a divine operation to protect your spirit. Spiritually, silence is one of the most powerful frequencies. Ancient mystics and monks understood this well. They retreated into stillness, not to escape the world, but to hear it more clearly. And you, chosen one, did the same. You silenced the noise to reconnect with your source. That's why you're glowing differently now. People sense it, but can't explain it. They feel your absence like a missing note in a song. They can't name what's gone, but they feel the imbalance. So when people start panicking because you're quiet, remember, silence speaks volumes to those who once thrived on your energy. Your stillness is unsettling because it reveals who's been feeding off your peace all along. You didn't abandon anyone, you ascended. You didn't run from chaos. You simply stopped participating in it. Chosen one, understand this clearly. Your exit was your elevation. You outmaneuvered the noise, you mastered restraint, and you let divine wisdom lead the way. And now the enemy panics, not because you fought them, but because you no longer have to. Your silence became your sword, your peace became your power, and your absence became the loudest message of all. You've already won. Point 5, you were trained through pain. Let's be real for a second. Your strength didn't come easy. You didn't wake up one day with unshakable confidence or divine resilience. No, you were forged in the fire. Life didn't hand you peace. It tested you until you built it. Every heartbreak that tore you apart was actually a lesson in emotional intelligence. Every betrayal taught you discernment, and every rejection purified your purpose. See, chosen one, God didn't send you into comfort. He sent you into combat, the kind that doesn't leave bruises on your body but refines your soul. Your pain was your military academy. Your heartbreaks were drills, and your tears were the water that softened the clay before it hardened into unbreakable strength. There's a reason soldiers don't panic in chaos. They've been there before. That's you. Life trained you to stay composed when others crumble. You learned that peace isn't found in avoiding storms. It's in learning to stand still within them. Neuroscientists even say that the brain rewires itself after trauma. It becomes sharper, more alert, and more adaptive. What broke you once now built resilience pathways in your mind. So when people look at you and call you cold, they don't realize they're mistaking wisdom for distance. You're not bitter, you're aware. You've seen too much, felt too deeply, and learned too painfully to keep repeating the same cycles. You now walk with a spiritual radar. You can sense deceit in silence, manipulation behind smiles, and truth hidden between words. You no longer chase what isn't meant for you because you understand energy doesn't lie. That's why your peace intimidates people. They don't understand that it's not indifference, it's graduation. You've outgrown drama that used to pull you in, and that calm glow you carry, that's the aura of someone who's been through war and chose not to become the battlefield. Even spiritually speaking, this process mirrors divine refinement. In ancient Hebrew tradition, gold was purified by fire until all impurities rose to the surface and were removed. Similarly, your suffering brought your shadows up, not to destroy you, but so you could see them, face them, and rise above them. The pain you survived became proof that you were chosen for something beyond the ordinary. God never wastes pain. He repurposes it into wisdom. It's no wonder people can't read you anymore. Your silence has depth, and your presence has weight. You're no longer reactive because you've learned that reaction is a form of surrender. Instead, you respond from a place of awareness, not emotion. And that's the mark of someone who's been trained by life itself. When others get offended, you observe. When they gossip, you detach. When they attack, you stay still, because you've learned that your peace is your weapon. This journey made you spiritually strategic. You no longer pray for things to be easy. You pray for strength to handle what comes. You've become the kind of person who can lose everything and still walk with grace. That's not arrogance. That's spiritual mastery. You've been through emotional deserts and still found water in faith. You've been abandoned and still chose love over bitterness. That's divine training. So, chosen one, don't downplay how far you've come. Your calm wasn't inherited, it was earned. Your discernment wasn't luck, it was built. You didn't just survive, you evolved. You learned to see through illusions, to hear beyond words, and to move in silence. And that's why your strength confuses people. It's not loud, it's holy. You were trained by heartbreak, promoted by pain, and graduated through grace. You're not cold, you're seasoned. Point 6, they called you illegal because you're uncontrollable. When they said, you don't follow the rules, what they really meant was, you can't be manipulated. When they said, you think you know everything, what they truly meant was, you listen to God instead of man. Chosen one, that's the misunderstanding that has followed divine souls for generations. The world confuses divine direction for defiance. You were never made to fit into man-made systems that were built to control minds and mute voices. You were designed to move with divine timing, not man's approval. See, when you live guided by intuition, that quiet, unwavering inner voice, you start to operate outside the frequency of fear. And this makes people uncomfortable. Institutions, workplaces, and even families often rely on emotional conformity to function. The moment you stop seeking validation and start walking in alignment, you break invisible contracts. You no longer bend under the weight of guilt, comparison, or control. That's not rebellion, that's awakening. In psychology, this is often linked to individuation, a process Carl Jung described as becoming who you truly are, the union of your conscious and divine self. But on a spiritual level, it's even deeper. It's when your soul stops submitting to illusions and starts following truth, even if that truth isolates you. You're not illegal. You're just ungovernable by darkness. Systems built on deception, greed, and fear cannot hold you because your energy doesn't feed them. It's like trying to trap light inside a box. It will always find a way to shine through. And that's what the world can't comprehend about you. They've tried to label you as difficult, arrogant, or too spiritual, because your light exposes their shadows. But what they call arrogance is actually awareness. You don't obey manipulation because your soul recognizes counterfeit energy the moment it enters the room. You don't play their game because you've already seen the board from above. That's why the system fears you. The world operates on predictability. It rewards obedience and punishes authenticity. It trains people to move like pieces on a chessboard, thinking they're free when they're just following moves programmed by unseen hands. But you, chosen one, you flip the board. You realize that true power doesn't come from control. It comes from consciousness. You stop dancing to the rhythm of fear. And now, the drummers of this world don't know how to make you move. Even history whispers of your kind. Prophets, visionaries, inventors, and spiritual leaders, all accused of defiance before being recognized as enlightened. Think of Galileo, condemned for speaking cosmic truth. Think of Harriet Tubman, guided by divine visions to free souls from bondage. Think of those mystics who were labeled heretics, only to have their words studied centuries later. The same pattern repeats. What society can't understand, it tries to suppress. But divine instruction always outlives human judgment. When people in power whisper your name with confusion, it's because you don't fit their template. You move like someone who's been briefed by angels, because you have. You receive insight, foresight, and timing from realms they can't perceive. You know when to speak, when to be silent, and when to walk away. Your energy carries ancient knowledge, wisdom that can't be taught by universities or institutions, because it comes directly from source. And this frustrates the world that worships credentials over consciousness. So, no, you're not disobedient, you're devoted to truth. Your loyalty isn't to titles, hierarchies, or systems built on ego. It's to light, to love, to God. You're the one who can't be bought, silenced, or programmed because you already know who you are. That's the true rebellion, not against authority, but against illusion. You are proof that divine independence still exists in a world desperate to conform. And that's why when you walk, the darkness trembles, not because you break rules, but because you remind the world that freedom is still holy. Point 7. You're about to be commissioned. Chosen one, listen closely. The stage you're about to step on is not built by human hands. It's divinely constructed. The same people who rolled their eyes when you spoke your purpose, who whispered that you were dreaming too big, will soon stand in quiet awe. Not because they suddenly believe in you, but because they can no longer deny what God has already ordained. You see, when you're chosen, your validation doesn't come from applause. It comes from assignment. You were never meant to fit in with the crowd because you were designed to move the crowd through the power of your example, your frequency, and your divine authority. In psychology, they call it transformational leadership, leading not by command, but by influence, energy, and presence. This kind of leadership doesn't shout, it vibrates. People can feel your growth before they see it. They may not understand why they're drawn to your calm or inspired by your discipline, but it's because your frequency is rising, and that frequency is what heaven uses to shift atmospheres. This is why the old circles no longer recognize you. You've outgrown their wavelength. God's been preparing you behind the curtain, in silence, in isolation, in those quiet nights where you questioned everything but kept your faith intact. That's where he trained your spirit to stand tall without support, to walk in authority without needing an audience. You weren't being delayed, you were being deployed. Heaven's orders have been signed. The battlefield isn't a war of swords, it's a war of energy, intention, and truth. Your next move will not be about proving yourself. It'll be about positioning yourself where God can use you most powerfully. The elites, those who once mocked your simplicity, are starting to sense a disturbance. They can't quite name it, but spiritually they feel the shifting tide. The power dynamics are changing. For too long, darkness has been loud, and light has been humble. But now, your era of silent greatness is ending. The same quietness that once hid you is about to reveal you. What was once your preparation season is turning into your presentation season. Chosen one, this isn't a coincidence. It's divine timing. You were hidden so you could be sharpened. You were doubted so you could develop endurance. And now the world is about to see what heaven has been working on all along. Get ready, not for attention, but for assignment. Your visible victory has just begun. Chosen one, your raw talent is more than skill. It's divine technology coded into your spirit. You weren't built to fit systems. You were designed to disrupt them. Every gift you carry is a form of higher intelligence, a spiritual algorithm meant to bring light where confusion reigns. So when others say, that's illegal, they're not referring to crime. They're reacting to brilliance beyond their comprehension. The greatest innovators and prophets were once accused of breaking the rules because divine innovation always challenges human tradition. You don't need validation, you need alignment. Walk like one commissioned by heaven itself, because you are. Your silence holds wisdom, your obedience carries power, and your very presence unsettles darkness. Dominion isn't coming, it's unfolding through you.